The rain pounded hard on the tin roof when Esperanza felt the first sharp pain in her belly. Her hands trembled on the worn ribos while she looked through the kitchen window, hoping to see Casimiro's old truck coming up the dirt road. The smell of beans burning on the wood stove made her eyes sting, but not as much as the tears that were already starting to flow. "Mama, where's Papa?" little Lupita asked, tugging at her mother's skirt. At 7 years old, she was the oldest of the 8 children, with another on the way. Esperanza couldn't answer. Her throat was tight as a knot. She'd found the note that morning, hidden under the clay pot where she kept the grocery money. The money was gone, of course. Everything was gone. "Your husband took it all," Doña Remedios had told her just an hour ago, her weathered face full of pity. "I saw him at dawn, loading the truck with everything valuable. Even took the chickens, the shameless man." The old woman had seen him with that woman from town, the one who wore tight dresses and painted her lips red like blood, the one who'd been making eyes at Casimiro every Sunday after Mass. "Higel," Esperanza had gasped, her hand flying to her swollen belly. 9 months pregnant, 8 mouths to feed, and her husband had run off with another woman. Now, as thunder crashed overhead, she looked at her children gathered in the small kitchen. Miguel and Carlos, the twins, only 5 years old. Little Rosita, 3. Baby Diego in his wooden cradle. And the others, Jose, Maria, Ana, all looking at her with those big brown eyes full of trust. The note crumpled in her fist. She'd read it 20 times already. "I can't do this anymore. Too many mouths. She understands me. Don't look for me." "Mama's crying," Lupita announced to her siblings as if they couldn't see the tears streaming down their mother's face. "No, Mija," Esperanza wiped her cheeks quickly. "It's just the smoke from the stove." But when she went to stir the beans, she found them completely burned, stuck to the bottom of the pot like tar. It was their last bit of food. The pantry was empty except for a handful of old corn and some salt. "Are we going to eat today?" Carlos asked in his small voice. The question broke something inside her. She gripped the edge of the wooden table, her knuckles white. How could he do this? How could Casimiro abandon them like dogs in the street? She, me Amor, Mama will figure something out. But what? She had no money, no food, no husband, and a baby that could come any day now. A knock at the door made them all jump. Esperanza's heart leaped. Maybe Casimiro had come back. Maybe it was all a terrible mistake. But when she opened the door, it was Don Rigoberto, the landowner, standing there with his expensive boots and cold smile. "Senora Esperanza," he tipped his hat mockingly, "I heard about your situation. What do you want?" She tried to keep her voice steady. "Well, as you know, your husband owed me 3 months of rent for this farm, since he's gone. I'm afraid I'll need you to leave. No manches." The words escaped before she could stop them. "You can't throw us out. I have 8 children and another on the way." "That's not my problem, Senora. You have until tomorrow sunset. After that, I'll send my men to remove you." His eyes traveled over her worn dress, her swollen belly. "Unless we could work out another arrangement." The way he licked his lips made her skin crawl. She slammed the door in his face. "Vais al diablo," she shouted through the wood. His laughter faded as he walked away, but his words echoed in her head. Tomorrow sunset. Where would they go? The storm grew worse as night fell. The children huddled together on the old mattresses, hungry bellies growling. Esperanza sat by the window, watching the lightning illuminate the small cornfield that Casimiro had abandoned half-planted. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Mija, a woman must always be strong. The earth doesn't stop turning just because men are weak." But how could she be strong now? She pressed her hands against her belly, feeling the baby kick. This little one would never know its father. Just like the others would grow up abandoned, forgotten. "Senora Esperanza," a voice called through the storm. She opened the door to find Padre Sebastian, the young priest from the pueblo, soaked to the bone. "Padre, what are you doing here in this weather?" "Doña Remedios told me what happened. I came as soon as I could." He handed her a small cloth bundle. It's not much, some tortillas and cheese from the church. She nearly collapsed with relief. Gracias, Padre, God bless you. There's more, he said, rain dripping from his kind face. There's an old ranch about 10 miles north. It's been abandoned for years, but it has a roof and a well. The owner died with no family. If you can get there, you can stay. No one will bother you. But how will we get there? Casimiro took the truck, the horse, everything. I'll come tomorrow with my wagon. Be ready at dawn before Don Rigoberto's men arrive. After he left, Esperanza fed her children the precious tortillas and cheese, saving none for herself. She packed their few belongings, some clothes, her mother's old como, a faded image of the Virgin de Guadalupe, into flour sacks. That night she didn't sleep. She sat surrounded by her sleeping children, feeling the baby move inside her, and for the first time in her life, she felt completely alone. Why? She whispered to the darkness. Why did you leave us, Casimiro? Was her body worth more than your children's hunger? Was her laugh sweeter than your baby's first cry? Thunder was her only answer. Dawn came gray and drizzling. True to his word, Padre Sebastian arrived with his old wooden wagon pulled by 2 tired mules. The children climbed in silently, still half asleep, clutching their few possessions. As they drove away, Esperanza looked back at the farm where she'd spent 7 years of her life, where all her babies had been born, where she'd been foolish enough to believe in love and promises. Don't look back, Senora, the priest said gently. God has other plans for you. The journey took hours on the muddy roads. The younger children cried from hunger and cold. Esperanza held them close, her rebozo stretched to cover as many little bodies as possible. Finally, as the sun reached its peak, they saw it, a crumbling adobe house sitting alone on a barren hill, surrounded by dead mesquite trees and cacti. This is it? Lupita asked, her voice small. Esperanza's heart sank. The place looked like it hadn't seen human life in decades. The roof had holes. The door hung on one hinge. Tumbleweeds filled what must have once been a courtyard. She, Mija, this is our new home. Padre Sebastian helped them unload. I'm sorry it's not much, but you're safe here. I'll come check on you when I can. After he left, Esperanza stood in the doorway of the ruined house, her children clustered behind her like frightened chicks. The main room was full of dust and spider webs. Rats scurried in the corners. There was no furniture, no stove, nothing but bare walls and a dirt floor. Mama, I'm scared, Rosita whimpered. I want to go home, Miguel added. This is home now, Esperanza said, trying to sound brave. We'll make it beautiful, you'll see. But as she explored the property, her heart sank further. The well was there, thankfully, but the rope was rotted and the bucket was gone. The old chicken coop had collapsed. The small field was overrun with weeds and rocks. That first night was the worst of her life. They slept on the hard floor, huddled together for warmth. The wind howled through the holes in the roof. When it started to rain, water dripped on them from above. Esperanza lay awake, her back aching, the baby pressing on her bladder. Every sound made her jump. Was it coyotes? Bandits? She clutched her children tighter, feeling their small bodies shivering against hers. Please, Virgencita, she prayed. Give me strength. Show me the way. In the morning, she woke to find Lupita trying to sweep the floor with a broken branch. I'm helping, Mama, the little girl said proudly. Something stirred in Esperanza's chest. If her 7-year-old could be brave, so could she. That's my good girl. Come, let's see what we can do. She sent the older children to gather firewood while she examined their supplies. In a corner of the house, half buried under debris, she found an old trunk. Inside were musty blankets, some rusted tools, and at the bottom, a leather journal. The pages were yellowed but readable. It was the diary of a woman named Soledad who had lived here 50 years ago. As Esperanza read, she found detailed notes about which plants grew well in this soil, where to find water in dry seasons, how to make adobe bricks, how to preserve food without ice. Mama, look, Jose ran in holding something. I found this in the old garden. It was a small cloth bag. Inside were seeds, corn, beans, squash. They were old but might still grow. Oriel, Esperanza felt the first spark of hope. These are treasures, Mijo. She organized the children into teams. The older ones cleared debris. The younger ones gathered stones to repair the walls. Even little Resita helped, carrying small sticks for firewood. Using the journal's instructions, Esperanza managed to fix the well rope with strips torn from her old petticoat. The first bucket of water they pulled up was muddy, but after several more, it ran clearer. Water. The children cheered, dancing around the well. That night, they had a small fire in the corner of the main room. Esperanza made a thin addle with the last of their corn meal and the precious water. It wasn't much, but it was warm. "Tell us a story, Mama," Anna begged. So Esperanza told them about a brave mother bird who built a new nest after a storm destroyed her old one. The children listened with wide eyes, not realizing she was really talking about them. Days passed in a blur of work. Using Soledad's journal, Esperanza learned to identify edible plants in the desert. She found nopals and carefully removed the spines, cooking them over the fire. The children made faces at first but ate them gratefully. "It tastes better than hunger," Carlos said wisely. One morning, Esperanza woke to sharp pains. The baby was coming. "Lupita," she gasped. "Run to the road. Try to find anyone, the baby." But before Lupita could leave, an old woman appeared at their door as if from nowhere. She wore traditional clothes and carried a woven bag. "I am Doña Consuelo," she said simply. "I live over the ridge. I saw your smoke and came to see who was living in Soledad's house." "Please," Esperanza groaned. "The baby." The old woman took charge immediately. She sent the children to gather water and clean cloths. Her weathered hands were gentle and sure as she helped Esperanza through the labor. Hours later, as the sun set, a cry filled the adobe house. Not a cry of sadness, but of new life. "A girl," Doña Consuelo announced, placing the baby in Esperanza's arms. Small but strong like her mother. Esperanza looked at her daughter through tears. This baby would never know her father's abandonment, only her mother's love. "What will you name her?" Lupita asked, peering at her new sister. "Esperancita," she decided. "Little hope, because that's what we need now." Doña Consuelo stayed for 3 days, teaching Esperanza about the desert plants that could feed and heal. She showed her where an underground spring created a small patch of fertile land perfect for planting. "This land is hard but honest," the old woman said. "It gives back what you put in, unlike men who make promises." Before leaving, she pressed something into Esperanza's hand, a small bag of corn seeds. "These are special. My grandmother's corn. Plant them with love and they'll feed your children." After she left, Esperanza felt less alone. She had survived childbirth in this desolate place. She had kept her children alive for a week with nothing. Maybe, just maybe, she could do this. She started small. Using the rusted hoe from the trunk, she cleared a tiny patch of land. The children helped, pulling weeds and moving rocks. Her body was still weak from childbirth, but she pushed through. "Why are we doing this, Mama?" Miguel asked, wiping sweat from his small forehead. "Because we're planting our future, Mijo. Each seed is a meal for you and your brothers and sisters." She showed them how to make small holes, how to place the seeds carefully, how to cover them with earth like tucking babies into bed. The first green shoots appeared 2 weeks later. The children ran to her, shouting with excitement. "Mama, Mama, the seeds are alive." Esperanza knelt in the dirt, Esperancita tied to her chest in the rebozo, and touched the tiny plants with wonder. They had created life from nothing. "You see," she told her children, "we don't need anyone else. We have the earth, we have these hands, and we have each other." As weeks turned to months, their little farm began to take shape. Esperanza learned from every failure. When birds ate their first planted seeds, she made scarecrows from their old clothes. When rabbits invaded, she built fences from thorny ocotillo branches. The abandoned chicken coop was rebuilt slowly, one board at a time. Padre Sebastian, on one of his visits, brought them 3 laying hens. "For the children," he said simply. The first egg was cause for celebration. Esperanza scrambled it carefully and divided it 9 ways, everyone getting a small taste of hope. One day, while pulling water from the well, she heard a wagon approaching. Her heart clenched with fear. Was it Don Rigoberto? Had he found them? But it was a man she didn't recognize, tall and weathered by the sun, with kind eyes and work-worn hands. A boy about Lupita's age sat beside him. "Señora," he removed his hat respectfully. "I'm Aurelio Mendoza. This is my son, Joaquin. We have the ranch over the eastern ridge. Doña Consuelo told me you might need help with your roof before the rains come." Esperanza's pride battled with necessity. I have no money to pay you." "Did I ask for money?" He smiled gently. "We're neighbors. Today I help you, tomorrow maybe you help me. That's how it works out here." He spent the day patching the worst holes in the roof while Joaquin played with her children. Esperanza noticed how patient he was, how he explained each repair to Jose and Carlos so they could learn. "Your husband?" he asked carefully while working. "Gone," she said simply. "Left us with nothing." He nodded without judgment. "My Maria died 3 years ago. Fever. It's hard raising children alone." They worked in comfortable silence after that. When he left, the roof was solid, and Esperanza felt something she hadn't felt in months, that maybe kindness still existed in the world. The corn grew tall and strong. Esperanza learned to grind it on an old metate she found, making fresh tortillas that filled the house with warmth. The beans climbed up the corn stalks just like Soledad's journal said they would. The squash spread its broad leaves, shading the ground and keeping moisture in. One morning, she woke to find Lupita in the kitchen area, trying to make tortillas on her own. "I watched you, Mama. I want to help more." Tears filled Esperanza's eyes as she guided her daughter's small hands. This was how they would survive together, each one learning, each one contributing. Aurelio began visiting more often, always with legitimate reasons, bringing them a bucket when theirs cracked, helping to dig irrigation channels, teaching the boys to make adobe bricks. Joaquin became like another son, playing and working alongside her children. "Why do you help us?" Esperanza asked one day as they worked side by side in the field. He was quiet for a long moment. "Because I know what it's like to be alone with children depending on you. Because you never ask for help even when you need it. Because..." He paused. "Because I see how hard you work for them, and it reminds me there's still good in this world." The first harvest was small but precious. Esperanza taught her children to save seeds from the best plants. She dried corn and beans, storing them carefully. She learned to make conserves from the nopals and wild fruits Doña Consuelo had shown her. "We did this," she told her children as they looked at their small but real food stores. "With our own hands, we made food from desert." One evening, as the sun painted the sky orange and pink, Aurelio lingered after helping repair their chicken coop. "Esperanza," he said quietly, "I want you to know, I'm not looking for anything, I like being here. You and the children, you've brought life back to this dead land, and to me." She looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the loneliness in his eyes that matched her own. Saw how gentle he was with her children, how he never tried to replace their father but simply offered steady presence. "I like you being here too," she admitted. Little Esperancita, now 6 months old, reached for Aurelio from her mother's arms. He took her carefully and the baby laughed, grabbing at his weathered face. "She knows you," Esperanza said softly. "I hope so. I've been here since the day she was born, haven't I?" It was true. Somehow, without her noticing, he'd become part of their rhythm. His wagon wheels were as familiar as the sunrise. One day, Joaquin came running with news. "Papa, Señora Esperanza, there's a market in the pueblo next week. They're looking for vendors." Esperanza's heart leaped. A market meant a chance to sell their extra vegetables, maybe trade for things they needed. But how would we get there? She wondered aloud. "We have a wagon," Aurelio said simply. "We'll all go together." The night before the market, Esperanza couldn't sleep. She arranged and rearranged their vegetables, polished each tomato, aligned every ear of corn. Her children made small bundles of dried herbs they'd gathered. What if no one buys anything? She fretted. Mama, Lupita said seriously, our vegetables are grown with love. People will taste it. At the market, Esperanza spread their goods on a borrowed cloth. At first, people passed by without stopping. Her heart sank. Then a woman paused. These tomatoes, they remind me of my grandmother's garden. They're grown with natural methods, Esperanza explained eagerly. No chemicals, just compost and care. The woman bought 3 pounds. Then another customer stopped, then another. By midday, they'd sold almost everything. Mama, look. Jose held up their earnings. It wasn't much, but it was theirs, earned honestly. With the money, Esperanza bought flour, lard, and luxury of luxuries, a small bag of sugar for the children. Can we come back next week? Miguel asked hopefully. Every week, Esperanza promised. As their reputation grew, so did their customer base. People began seeking out the widow's vegetables, saying they tasted like the old days before everything became modern and flavorless. One day at the market, a well-dressed woman approached their stand. Are you the one who grows these wonderful vegetables? She, Senora, I run a restaurant in the city. I'd like to buy from you regularly. Can you supply me? Esperanza's mind raced. Regular sales meant steady income, but also more work than she could handle alone. I need to think about it. That evening, she discussed it with Aurelio. It's a wonderful opportunity, but how can I grow enough? I'm already working from dawn to dusk. What if you weren't doing it alone? He suggested. There are other women in the area, widows and abandoned wives, struggling like you were. What if you taught them what you've learned? The idea took root like one of her seeds. Within a month, she had 3 women working with her, learning to grow vegetables using Soledad's methods. They shared the work, the knowledge, and the profits. Doña Carmen, abandoned with 2 children, cried when she received her first payment. I thought we would starve. Now my babies eat every day. The garden expanded. The adobe house, once falling apart, was now sturdy and full of life. Children's laughter echoed where once only wind had howled. One evening, as Esperanza taught the women to preserve vegetables for the off-season, Aurelio watched from the doorway. You've built something amazing here, he said later as they sat watching the sunset. We built it, she corrected, all of us. He took her work-roughened hand in his. Esperanza, I've wanted to say something for a long time. Don't, she interrupted, fear fluttering in her chest. I can't, I trusted once before. I'm not him, Aurelio said gently. I don't want to own you or control you. I want to stand beside you, work beside you, raise our children together. Both mine and yours, because in my heart they're all ours now. She looked at their joined hands, his scarred from work, hers stained from soil. Honest hands. Faithful hands. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I, but maybe we can be scared together. Little Esperancita crawled over, pulling herself up on Aurelio's leg. He lifted her easily, and she patted his face with chubby hands. See, she already knows, he smiled. 1 year after arriving at the abandoned ranch, Esperanza stood in her flourishing garden. The corn was head-high. Beans hung heavy on the vines. Squash blossoms opened golden in the morning sun. Mama, Mama, her children came running. There's a truck coming. Fear seized her. Even now, unexpected visitors made her nervous. But the truck was old and rattling, and the man who stepped out was gaunt and shabby. It took her a moment to recognize Casimiro. Esperanza, he said, his voice rough. I heard you were here. She said nothing, just looked at him. He was thinner, older, defeated. She left me, he continued. Took everything. I have nothing. And you came here, why? Her voice was steady as stone. I thought maybe you'd take me back. I'm the father of your children. No. The word came out firm and final. You were the man who abandoned 9 children and a pregnant wife. Their father is the one who taught them to make adobe bricks, who carries water when they're sick, who shows them every day what real love looks like. Aurelio appeared beside her, Esperancita on his hip. The baby reached for Esperanza and she took her, holding her close. You should go. Aurelio said quietly to Casimiro. "There's nothing for you here." Casimiro looked at his children who stood silently behind their mother. None ran to him. None called out Papa. "Lupita," he tried. "My name is Guadalupe," the girl said formally, "and you're a stranger here." He left without another word, his truck disappearing in a cloud of dust. "Are you okay?" Aurelio asked softly. Esperanza realized she was. The man who had once held power over her life was nothing now. She had built something he could never tear down. "I'm perfect," she said, meaning it. The wedding was simple but joyful. Padre Sebastian officiated in the courtyard of what was no longer a ruined house but a thriving home. The women from their cooperative cooked feast dishes. Children ran everywhere, brown and happy in the sun. Esperanza wore a simple white dress embroidered by the women, each adding their own stitch of blessing. Aurelio waited for her under an arch of corn stalks and squash vines, his eyes bright with tears. 2 years ago, I wanted to die in this place, Esperanza said in her vows. But this desert taught me that life finds a way. In the hardest ground, with the smallest seed of hope, miracles grow. You were my miracle, Aurelio. You and all who showed me that love isn't taking, it's giving, building, growing together. The party lasted until the stars came out. Musicians from the Pueblo played, and everyone danced in the courtyard that had once been full of tumbleweeds. As the evening wound down, Esperanza found herself by the well where she'd pulled that first muddy bucket of water. "You did it, Mija." She turned to find Doña Consuelo, the old woman who delivered Esperancita. "We did it," Esperanza corrected. "No, you did it. We just gave you seeds. You made them grow." The old woman smiled. Soledad would be proud. Her house is alive again. Later, Esperanza walked through her garden in the moonlight. The plants rustled in the cool breeze, heavy with food that would feed not just her family but many families. Tomorrow, 3 more women would come to learn. Next month, they would expand to another abandoned plot. "Mama," Lupita appeared beside her. "Are you happy?" Esperanza pulled her eldest close. This girl who had swept floors with a broken branch, who had been brave when her mother couldn't be. "Me, Amor, I'm happy. I want to be like you when I grow up," Lupita said. "Strong and brave. You already are, Mija. You already are." 5 years passed. The cooperative grew to 20 women, all growing food, all supporting their families. The restaurant in the city now bought exclusively from them, and other businesses followed. Esperanza stood before a group of new women, teaching them about seed selection. Her own children worked alongside her, Lupita keeping records, Jose managing irrigation, the twins helping with construction. Even little Esperancita, now 5, helped plant seeds with her chubby fingers. "The most important thing," Esperanza told the women, "is to remember that you have everything you need inside you. The earth is honest, it gives back what you put in. Work hard, help each other, and never give up." One of the women raised her hand. "Senora Esperanza, what if we fail? What if we can't do it?" Esperanza smiled. "Do you see this place? 5 years ago it was dead. My children were hungry. I had nothing but seeds and stubbornness. You will fail sometimes, I failed many times, but each failure teaches you. And you're not alone. We're all here to help." After the lesson, she found Aurelio building new storage shelves with Joaquin and Carlos. They worked in easy rhythm, father and sons indistinguishable by blood. "The mayor wants to give you an award," Aurelio told her, "for transforming the community." Esperanza laughed. "I don't need awards. I have everything right here." She looked around at her empire built from nothing, children healthy and strong, women working and laughing, rows of green stretching toward the mountains, a home full of love where once was only ruin. That night the family gathered for dinner as they always did. The long table Aurelio had built groaned under the weight of food they'd grown themselves. 17 people now, her 9 children, Aurelio and Joaquin, and often whatever women and children needed a meal. "Tell us the story, Mama," Esperancita demanded. "About when you first came here." So Esperanza told it again, the story they never tired of hearing. about the rain on the tin roof, the burned beans, the night on the cold floor, about finding seeds and learning to grow, about women helping women and love rebuilding what abandonment had destroyed. And then what happened? Esperancita asked, though she knew. And then, Esperanza said, looking around the table at all the faces she loved, we lived happily ever after, not because a prince saved us, but because we saved ourselves. And that, mis amores, is the best kind of happy ending. Outside, the desert bloomed in the darkness, testament to what can grow when desperate hearts refuse to give up. The abandoned woman had become the heart of a community. The ruined ranch had become an oasis. And 9 hungry children had become the seeds of a legacy that would flourish for generations. In the journal that Esperanza now kept, adding to Soledad's wisdom, she wrote, "Today the women harvested 30 pounds of tomatoes. Esperancita learned to count to 100. Aurelio and the boys finished the new greenhouse. Life is good." She closed the journal and prepared for bed, Aurelio already waiting for her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new women to teach, new ground to break. But tonight, she was exactly where she belonged, home, in the house that disaster had brought her to and determination had made beautiful. The desert wind sang through the corn stalks, and if you listened closely, it sounded like hope.